All right. Good morning and good afternoon. It's close to afternoon for some of us and morning for some of us. So welcome to the 48th annual symposium from InformCanada. We're glad that you're here. We've had some real challenges, but lots of fun creating this agenda for you. And we're really excited about a whole bunch of sessions and a whole bunch of our guests. And so I'm going to have one small change, one big change actually, in that our Indigenous speaker has been called away into the community. Steve Paquette is a dear friend of ours, mine here in Oakville, Ontario. He's been called away. There's been a death in the community, and he is a firekeeper for the community and has been called to perform that responsibility which he holds in our community. He's instructed me to do some sort of opening and welcome in Indigenous teaching. And so I will let you know that he's just recently been engaged with the Oakville Public Library, which is where I work, as our Indigenous knowledge guide. And so he has been working internally and externally to the community to provide guidance around our truth reconciliation progress and actions and reconciliation actions. So we work towards that here at the library. I am known as, I've worked with Steve for many years. You probably know the name as well, as he is a former employee of Find Help. So many of you know him. So he's always a great one to tap into for a resource because he understands our sector and the work. I am dealing with a head cold throat thing, so I hope you can hear me, and I hope I don't sound too much like a frog or talking under the water. So in the work that we've been doing, Stephen and I, over many, many years, I have become his ceremonial helper, his Ashwayas, it's called. And so when he had to cancel, he's given me some instruction to give to you some teaching around Indigenous knowledge and territory acknowledgement component. So Oakville Public Library has its own territorial acknowledgement, where we talk about and recognize the Treaty 22 and 24 of the Mississaugas, the treaty holder, but it's really about the land, and the land and the use of the land is really important to us as we embark on moving our library to a different site, our central library. And so taking the knowledge of the plants and the trees that we have here and moving it to our new site and incorporating that. And so there's a large effort for Stephen and I to engage the Indigenous communities across Halton, actually, to bring that kind of teaching, bring those elements into the new build, into the new central library for Oakville. And so, Andrew, if you want to go to the next screen. So I'm going to do a little bit of a teaching that Stephen has instructed me to, and it will be our territory acknowledgement in a good way and in a teaching way, which they are meant to be. So this is a mural, the Mother Bear Medicine mural that was painted. I engaged Joel White Duck, a local Indigenous artist, and he had two of his youth come in and design a mural specifically for Oakville Public Library. So this sits on entrance of our main floor. It also holds our food area for people accessing our food programs through the library. Excuse me. So Joel, like the artist, was engaged, and he spent 2 days here in the library, walking through the library down to 16 Mile Creek, learned about the land, learned about the trees, learned about the grass and the water, and grandfathers, the rocks, and I spent some time here to really understand the space and the land that we occupy and the land that we're on, and use here on Treaty 22 and 16 Mile Creek. So this is the mural that he and his youth came up with for us, And he's incorporated really what I see as a land acknowledgement. It's about the land. It's about our original teachers, the grass, the trees, the animals, the water, the air. Those are original teachers. So there is a plaque that explains it. So I'm just going to read parts of it. So the mural represents humans who gather to learn at the library through the medicine of the trees, plants, the original trees and plants who are our original teachers. In the mural, the birch is the featured medicine tree. So these are all elements that he saw along 16 Mile Creek that he brought into the library. That the bears are gathering around. Specifically known, paper birch, this represents the sacred teachings that come from the medicine of this tree and their connection to literacy. The tree gave the Anishinaabe people many gifts for all their needs on this land, such as paper bark to write on, to create sacred scrolls, as well as the creation of birch bark biting artwork. The Anishinaabe also made birch bark into water resilient carrying pails for maple syrup and food storage containers. The birch bark is also used to build homes as well as canoes to navigate the water systems, allowing for fishing, collecting of wild rice, which grew along the rivers and waters, and traveled throughout the trading routes. It also carries a medicine called CHAGA. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so I don't want to say it. I'll spell it for you. That forms a fungus-like fungus that's on its fallen branches, which then can be made into tea and is extremely high in antioxidants. Much like the sugar maple, the birch tree that you can see above the waterfall. Oh, it's sort of that image is like the two corners coming together in the space. So much like the birch tree, this tree can be tapped for syrup in early spring. It's also an excellent fire starter. The tree on the far left of the mural is recognized by its shaggy bark. The white spirit there is sacred to the Anishinaabe and reminds us that every being has a gift that we can share with the community, no matter how different we are. We all have a place in the circle. The red-tailed hawk flying above the land is one of the messengers to the Great Spirit, Creator. The hawk will appear to tell you when you're headed the right way. Below is the weeping willow, close to the water where the willows grow best. The plant imagery and specifically has been specifically selected as teachings and are part of Treaty 22, and endemic to the river and environment of 16 Mile Creek and the land that Oakville and including the Oakville Public Library reside on. This is the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Treaty 22. So that's the instruction I was given to Stephen, and we really are looking at a territory acknowledgement in a way that's not about us, it's about the land. It really is about the teachings that the land gives us and how we're using them and how. So Stephen will be much more engaging and he's much better to look at than I am, but I hope that he's well, and I hope that there are some gifts in there and some understandings that you can take away from today from that presentation. I have to report, he's my new boss, please. So we're going to move along, and I want to really thank our sponsors this year. Excuse me. We've had an incredible response and incredible support from Find Help as our presenting sponsor. We have some streaming sponsors at Language Line in Ontario 211, the INR supporter at Inform USA. Hello, Inform USA. I know you're there somewhere. I can't see everybody. I think I saw Sarah. I saw you there. Great partner. Really, you'll hear more about that later, but Inform USA has been a great supporter and a great ally and a great partner to work along with. Excuse me. We also have the friend of INR, the Community Navigation of Eastern Ontario. So thank you to those new sponsors who are with us this year, and returning sponsors, always amazing. I want to introduce Angela and Karim from Find Help, and they want to bring some words before we dive into our amazing Rosita Hall presentation. Angela, oh, you're there. Okay.
Thank you, Marcus, and welcome everyone. Hello, my name is Angela Pinateri, and I am the Director of Community Impact for Find Help Information Services 211. And I'm joined this morning with my colleague, Corinne Gallois, Find Help Manager of Community Resources, Database, and Editorial Services. And Corinne will follow me in providing a welcoming remarks in French very shortly. So we are very pleased to be here today and to support the 48th InformCanada Symposium and to represent Find Help as one of the presenting sponsor. The theme this year is Information and Referral, Connecting Communities Across Canada. The information and referral sector in North America is built by a large network of collaborative leadership. InformCanada has evolved and strengthened over time as the Canadian leader in standards and accreditation. It is through this network of information and referral leaders that innovation and evolution builds throughout the country. Our support helps keeps us connected and further build the capacity of our network and the sector, resulting in greater positive impact for the communities that we serve. While information referral sector is so much more than 211, the importance of InformCanada and Inform USA is in helping to build and evolve 211 across North America. We are so grateful to be part of such an amazing collaborative network. InformCanada's subcommittees, the 211 Canada Leadership Table, which many of us are part of, actively move the work of 211 in Canada forward through strategic leadership and with partners engaged in all aspects of system building. And recently, exciting developments included the launch of the National 211 app. We are grateful for our numerous partners outside of the 211 network who are working in collaboration with us and their provincial and regional partners. Some of these important projects include inclusive data for equitable access to services, crisis diversion initiatives, community information exchange, and innovation and information referral. Over the next 2 days, you will hear presentations that will explore and emphasize the exciting work that is being done in partnership across Canada and beyond. Not only are we gaining strength across the sector nationally through the work of InformCanada and its members, we are also building stronger partnerships and collaborations with our colleagues at Inform USA. On behalf of Find Help, we thank all of you for participating in this year's symposium and wish you an inspiring 2 days of sharing, learning, and networking. And I will now turn it over to my colleague, Corinne Gallois, to welcome everyone in French. Thank you.
Thank you, merci Angela, et bonjour à tous. Nous sommes très heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui pour appuyer le 48e symposium d'InformCanada et représenter Find Help en tant que commanditaire présentateur. Le thème de cette année est ancré sur l'information et les références, relier les communautés à travers le Canada. Le secteur de l'information et référence en Amérique du Nord repose sur un vaste réseau de leadership collaboratif. InformCanada a évolué et s'est renforcé au fil du temps en tant que leader canadien en matière de normes et d'accréditation. C'est grâce à ce réseau de leaders en information et référence que l'innovation et l'évolution se développent dans tout le pays. Notre soutien nous aide à rester en contact et à renforcer les capacités de notre réseau et du secteur, ce qui se traduit par un impact positif plus important pour les communautés que nous servons. Bien que le secteur de l'information et de l'orientation s'étende bien au-delà du 2 à 1, l'importance d'InformCanada et d'Inform USA est d'aider à construire et à faire évoluer le 2 à 1 à travers l'Amérique du Nord. Nous sommes très reconnaissants de faire partie d'un réseau de collaboration aussi extraordinaire. Le sous-comité d'InformCanada, la table du leadership canadien du 2 à 1, dont beaucoup d'entre nous font partie, fait activement avancer le travail du 2-1 au Canada par le biais d'un leadership stratégique et avec des partenaires engagés dans tous les aspects de la construction du système. Récemment, un des développements les plus passionnants inclut le lancement d'une application 2-1 nationale. Nous sommes également reconnaissants à nos nombreux partenaires en dehors du réseau du 2-1 qui travaillent en collaboration avec nous et leurs partenaires provinciaux et régionaux. Parmi ces projets importants, citons les données inclusives pour un accès équitable aux services, les initiatives de déjudiciarisation en cas de crise, l'échange d'informations communautaires et l'innovation en matière d'information et d'orientation. Au cours des 2 prochains jours, vous entendrez des présentations qui exploreront et souligneront le travail formidable réalisé en partenariat à travers le Canada et au-delà. Non seulement nous gagnons en force dans le secteur à l'échelle nationale grâce au travail d'InformCanada et de ses membres, mais nous établissons également des partenariats et des collaborations plus solides avec nos collègues d'Inform USA. Alors, au nom de Find Help, nous tenons à vous remercier tous pour votre participation au symposium de cette année et nous vous souhaitons 2 jours inspirants de partage, d'apprentissage et de réseautage. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, merci Corinne and Angela, and thank you for your ongoing support of our work in our association. I'm going to take one more second before I jump into Rosita's introduction. I would be remiss at acknowledging the work that Andrew and Michelle and Philip have done on this conference this year. We had some bumps in terms of personnel and people having to step back for health reasons, and so they've really stepped in and picked up a ball. We want to ensure that this conference still happens, so if there are some technical bumps as we go, we are short some folks, and so we are all playing double duty for the next couple of days. But Andrew is amazing at the back end stuff. Michelle and Philip and I are here to support as we go through this. Okay, so don't judge me by my success. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. Famous quote from Nelson Mandela, also Rosita Hall's favorite quote. And I know why, because I've had the pleasure of attending one of her sessions here in Oakville, actually. It was a face-to-face session, and I tell you, I wanted to get up and dance with her. I wish we could all be in the same room with her. The energy and the passion that Rosita has is amazing. I hope you enjoy her. I have a bit of a paragraph to read about her. Rosita's greatest joy comes from inspiring others to rise up and hold on during changing and challenging times. She loves providing practical solutions and takes great pride in seeing participants blossom into the best version of themselves. She's obsessed about learning something new each day, reading books, come to the library, or articles that challenge everything she thought she knew. She says it's her secret weapon, and it is one of the ways that helps her sustain resiliency in her life. She believes we each have an innate ability to overcome the sucker punches life throws at us at any given time if we commit to the challenging ourselves intellectually each day, prioritizing our health, maintain a resilient mindset, laugh like no one's watching, and create authentically rich connections. Please help me welcome Rosita Hall as she presents her changes, challenges, and choices all aboard the change train. Welcome, Rosita. It's so lovely to see you again.
All aboard the change train, changes, challenges, and choices. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with all of you today. You know, I come from the nonprofit world, and I have gone through so many changes and challenges as a former executive director of a nonprofit organization. And I just love anything that has to do with supporting and encouraging and lifting and elevating other people as they go through changes and challenges. So I hope by the end of today's presentation, you will feel inspired, you will feel lifted, you will feel like you're ready to take on anything that comes your way, because I really believe that every single person on this call today has the power to withstand and move through any kind of changes and challenges. And hopefully today, that's how you'll feel after my presentation. So here's the reality about the change train. Let me explain to you what the change train is and what the fuss bus is. So I have found throughout my career that oftentimes when we're going through changing and challenging times, you sort of have two sets of people. You have people who are going, okay, come on, I'm ready, let's go, let's get this going. And they're ready to board that change train. And they know that there's going to be opportunities. They know there's going to be bumps in the road. They know things are not going to always feel good. They know they're going to be taken out of their comfort zone, but they're going, I'm ready for the challenge. And then sometimes we have people who struggle with that a little bit. And I call that the fuss bus. And the fuss bus sort of is like really struggling, and we're trying to get there. We're not quite there yet. And there might be some negativity in some ways. But the reality is, we know that change is all that there is. This is just the reality of the life that we live in. We can't be surprised by change anymore because this is just the reality of it. So I don't even really believe so much in this whole change management theory, but really around readiness. How do we get ready? How do we stay ready? Because the reality is it's always going to be here. Change is always going to be in front of us. And so what we can do is stay ready for it. So yes, change can be messy. Relationships can be very, very messy because we have to now deal with each other maybe in a different way. Maybe you've lost some people along the way in the changes and the challenges. So it can be like a very difficult time. So I just want to first say, here's the reality of what it looks like when we're talking about change, that it's going to be messy, that relationships sometimes can be a little bit not on a solid ground, that maybe things are not working out the way they used to with the people that we normally would communicate with, because stress puts us kind of in change in a high alert when there's so much disruption and challenges. So what I want to challenge you to do today is to really think about, am I on that fuss bus? You know, that fuss bus where we're just doing what we have to do. I'm getting by, have to do it. Maybe my health's not in the place where it should be, but I'm trying to get there. Or are you on that change train? And if you're on that fuss bus today, I hope by the time we finish this session that you're going to climb aboard the change train, because the change train, trust me, it's filled with opportunities, and it will also take you outside your comfort zone, but it's a beautiful place to be, because the reality of life today, it's all about changes, it's all about challenges, but the most important piece is the choices that we make along the way. So what kind of choices are you making along the way? So today, here's what we're going to be covering. I'm going to talk to you about the power of navigating through changes and challenges, the power of self-honoring, the power of releasing that backpack that we often carry, the power of resilient mindset, the power of self-honoring, and the power of the glass balls. And I'm hoping that those specific things that I'll be talking about today will help you, if you're that person, to get off that fuss bus and on the change train. And if you're on the change train already, to keep you motivated, inspired, and encouraged to stay on that change train by making smart choices. Remember, it's changes, challenges, and choices. And the key piece here today is the choices that we make so that we get through any kind of challenge that comes our way, both in the workplace and outside of the workplace. So all aboard, I say to each and every one of you. So let's talk first about navigating through these changes and challenges and the choices that we have to make. There's a story that I love to share about my son when he was about 8 or 9 years old, and he was having a birthday party, and one of his friends brought him over this piggy bank, and it was a plastic blue piggy bank, and it had a little slit at the top. And as you know, most of those little piggy banks have a little piece at the bottom where you can pull it and everything falls out, all the change falls out. But this particular bank didn't have that. It was just clear plastic at the bottom, plastic the whole thing, and a small little slit at the top. And as he handed this gift to my son, he said, you're going to love this, and you'll never be able to get money out. And this is how long our friendship's going to last. And I remember that moment like it was yesterday. And he was shaking that bank, and yep, nothing was coming out. But fast forward about, 4 or 5 years when he became 12 or 13 years old, I remember hearing him in his room, and he was shaking this piggy bank, and he's shaking this piggy bank. And every once in a while, I'd hear like a scream because something had fallen out of this bank. And this went on for a little bit, and then I'd hear woo again because something had fallen out of this piggy bank. And then eventually, I guess I didn't hear too much. And then I saw him come down the stairs. He goes into the kitchen and he gets a butter knife because I guess it wasn't coming out fast enough. So now he thinks if he can widen that little slit at the top, he can get more money out. And so this went on for a little bit too. And I would hear these big screams every time something fell out. And then eventually, I guess he got enough out, and he came downstairs with his hand out with all this change. And he says, "Mom, now can you take me to the store?" And the reason why that story sticks with me, and I remember it, and I'll always remember it, because the lesson in it for me was that Josh had to shake that piggy bank until something of value came out. And it reminds me of the changes and the challenges. And I know as an organization, you guys have gone through a lot of changes and challenges with this merger. And the reality is, when we're going through big changes like that, we always feel like we're going through a shaking process emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. It's like everything, like, when is this going to stop? But just like the piggy bank story, if you hold on long enough, something of value will always come out. So I want to encourage you to hold on when you're feeling in that space where you're feeling like it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. I don't like this. I don't agree with this. Just hold on, because something of value always comes out of any kind of shaking process. So I encourage you, hold on and don't let go. Secondly, I want you to remember that there's always going to be forces that will work against the momentum of change. And you have to pay attention to that and respond accordingly in terms of adjustments that you may have to make so that it's not working against the momentum of change. And here's the things that always work against the momentum of change. 4 things. Fear, because we're afraid. You're asking me to do something different. I may have to be vulnerable. I don't know if I can do this. Don't know if I have the talent. Don't know if I have the skill. Don't know if I have the energy to do it. So that's number 1 is fear. Number 2 is the status quo. Because let's face it, people, it feels so much better just doing what we've always done. When we get into a place of comfort, please don't disturb me. Like, don't disturb me. I'm feeling very comfortable in the work that I'm doing right now. I don't want to do any kind of changes or any of those things. I just want to feel comfortable. But that's not a good place to be. The status quo is not a good place to be. Sitting in a place of fear is not a good place to be. Third thing that works against the momentum of change is underestimating the impact that change can have on you emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, because it's going to sometimes hit you like a sucker punch. And we have to be aware of that. And when I said, never mind change management, how about change readiness? That we have to be ready for this. So it means that you have to prepare yourself for this, because the reality is that it's going to challenge you emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. So again, it's the status quo, it's fear, it's underestimating the impact that change can have on you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And the 4th one is not understanding that we have a life outside of work, and there's stuff happening in our personal lives. So when we don't recognize that we're also carrying the stuff perhaps that's going on in our own personal lives, that's a double whammy when it comes to dealing with change. And especially now when everything is so blended, we're oftentimes working from home and we're dealing with the stresses of home, but we're also dealing with the stresses of work. All those things will work against the momentum of change. So I'll say it one more time. These forces will always work against the momentum of change, and we must be aware of it, because otherwise we will never be able to stay on that change train or even acknowledge or get on that change train. So again, it's the status quo, it's fear, it's underestimating the impact that change can have on you emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. And number 4, paying attention to, and sometimes I'm understanding that the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, in other words, at work or at home, is impacting how we're addressing change in the workplace, and we need to be aware of that.
Rosita, sorry to interrupt. It's Marcus.
Yes.
Sometimes when we're doing Zooms and things, there's a bit there's delays and that kind of technology piece. I'm wondering if you could slow down just a little bit.
Oh, I would love to slow down a little bit. Sure, of course. Do you want me to repeat this piece?
No, I think we should just move forward, but if you could slow down so people can capture it as it comes across the.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not interrupting at all. Okay, so the next one is, it starts with me, and I really do believe that when we're talking about change, that we have to be aware of our own self. We have to be in a place of self-awareness, always questioning where we are, how we do what we do, why we do what we do, how we show up every single day for work, how we show up every day just for life. So this is the second piece in terms of staying on that change train. So the first one is understand the reality of the changes and the challenges and the choices we have to make. This one is really showing up every day, asking yourself very important questions. And one of the pieces that I always turn back to is this. Growing up in a very large family, I remember my mom always would place books around the house because she wanted us to read. She spoke to us so much about how important education is. So one of the books that she'd always have laying wide open had all these poems in it. And I remember always sort of flipping through the book and going, these look boring. I'm not interested in these poems. But there was one poem that she always, every morning, I swear she went and just placed that book there with that poem there. And it was called The Man in the Glass. And I remember as a kid looking at it going, I don't know why she wants me to read this. I'm not a man. Like, why do I want to look at that? I didn't get the understanding of it. But as I became an adult, I started to understand what that poem was about. And it was called The Man in the Mirror. And I changed it a little bit. But basically, this was the essence of the poem. And it went like this. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you a star for the day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that person has to say. For it isn't your mother, your father, or spouse whose judgment upon you must pass, but the person whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back in the glass. You may fool the whole world down the pathways of years and get pats on your back as you pass, but the final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the person in the glass. And so in essence, what that poem is saying, and that's only a part of it, I didn't read the whole thing, is that to show up for life every single day, we have to recognize and understand who we are. Because when we're going through changes and challenges, that's the foundation that we stand on. That's the thing that will give us some steadiness if we understand who we are. And oftentimes we have struggled with that shaking process because we're not standing on a foundation of truth about who we are and how we're feeling and how we're doing in any given moment. And the reality is, as that poem says, at the end of the day, you've cheated yourself. You don't understand who you are and why you made the decisions and why you showed up and how you showed up for the work that you do. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be on a constant self-awareness journey, looking at ourselves, understanding our behaviors, why we're doing certain things, why we're responding in certain ways, and what do we have to shift and what do we have to change so that we stay aboard the change train. So that's number one in terms of it starts with me and self-awareness. Secondly, I believe when we're going through changes and challenges, and it certainly has worked for me, is that we have to remember three important things. I call them the 3 Ps. And every single day, if we can wake up and start our day in this way, it will help us work on being able to stay on that change train. And the 3 Ps are the picture, the purpose, and the plan. So if each and every day, when you get up or wake up, whatever you do, when you're sitting with your cup of coffee or whatever it is you have in the morning, if you can just ask yourself, regardless of what's going on, regardless of how fast everything's moving, just sit and ask yourself, what's the picture that I want to create today? What is it that I want to see in terms of my work? We're specifically talking about work right now. What's the picture I want to create? Because you have the power to create. What's the picture I'm hoping to create? And then you have to ask yourself, why do I want to create this picture? So for example, it might be, you know what, this has been a very, very stressful time, but the picture that I'm going to create today is I'm going to see myself handling these a little bit better. So you just create the picture. That's just an example. You may have something totally different. So you create the picture and then you go, what's the why? Because that's the purpose. Why do I want to do this? Because if the why is strong enough, then you're likely to follow through. So for that specific example where you go, I just want to create a more positive day, the why could be for the health of it, because it's impacting my health. So for the health of it, I'm going to create this picture. And then if you're going to create that picture, what's the plan? And a lot of times people don't follow through because I got the picture, you know, I know the purpose, but then you got to have a plan. Here's what you want to see happen. So what is the plan? How are you going to make this happen? Is it you're going to go, you know what? I want to have a really, really positive day, and because I want to care for my health. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. The first time I start hearing this negative thinking or this negative self-talk, I'm going to chime in and go, nope, we're not going in that direction today. The next time I find myself getting really wound up, I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, let's take some deep breaths. So those are just examples, but you have to have a plan if you're going to get into the picture, the purpose, and the plan. And then the last piece around self-awareness, and it starts with me, is the powerful question. And the question that we have to ask ourselves every single day is, why am I not doing it? Because we know there's something that we should be doing, and I don't know what it is. It's going to be different for every other person. But the question we should have to always ask ourselves is, why am I not doing this? What's stopping me? Why am I not doing what I know I need to do? What is it that's stopping me from doing that? So again, the power of self-awareness, it entails doing that mirror exercise every single day in terms of just trying to figure out on a constant self-awareness journey, where am I? How did I get here? Why am I responding this way? Why am I showing up this way? How to kind of make it even better? Number 2, the 3 Ps, start your day off with a picture, a purpose, and a plan. And by the way, when you create that picture, purpose, and a plan, something may happen during the day that you have to kind of shift and maybe change it a little bit, and that's okay. But just being able to have some focus when you start in the day makes a huge difference. And then the powerful question of, why am I not doing it? Because for all of us, there's always some challenge that we know we should be doing, that we should be addressing, and we don't. And we got to go deep and figure out, why is it that I cannot get to this place and do what I know I need to do? Hope you're still with me. The next piece is the invisible backpack. If we want to get off the fuss bus or on the change train, if we're already there, stay on that change train. Sometimes the packages that we carry are too much. Sometimes we're bringing too much with us on this journey of life. And so one of the questions you have to ask yourself, and I have to ask myself that on a daily basis, is, what is it that I'm carrying that's weighing me down? And more importantly, what am I carrying that's weighing other people down? Because we have to recognize the impact that we have on other people. So I call this backpack the invisible backpack, because most of the time we don't realize that we're even carrying this backpack. We know that we're just not feeling 100%. We know that maybe I got this runny nose, stuffy nose. Maybe I just don't feel like talking to people today. I'm just feeling a little bit frustration. All these things are there. And then sometimes there's just stuff there, and you know it's there because it's weighing you down. You don't feel good. You don't feel positive. It's just not feeling good. And you just don't know why. It's because a lot of times we don't recognize that we're even carrying it. Sometimes other people can see your invisible backpack, but you sometimes cannot see it. You just feel like you're carrying the weight of the world and you're not sure what to do with all of that. And it has to be unpacked. It has to be unpacked for the health of it for you, and it has to be unpacked for the health of those you're interacting with every single day. So what is some of that stuff that I've heard people say that they recognize that they're carrying in this invisible backpack? Sometimes it's anger about something that's happened that they haven't resolved. Sometimes it's frustration about something. Sometimes it's just like there's just too much disruption and I can't get a footing on the ground. Sometimes it's because I need to forgive someone. And the list goes on and on and on. And we have to be aware of that because it will impact our health. And I think each and every one of us knows the greatest source of health that we have is wealth that we have is our health. So we have to take incredibly good care of it. So holding on to that backpack and carrying it all with us, there's been a lot that's gone on over the past 4 years. And then your merger, there's a lot of stuff happening. And sometimes we just keep moving and we just keep moving and we just keep moving, but you'll never be able to fool the body and we'll never be able to fool our health. So we really have to ask ourselves important questions around this, even in this moment, as you're listening to this, to ask yourself, am I carrying something? Is there something that I'm carrying that's not allowing me to move forward in a more positive way, in a more positive direction? Is there something that I'm carrying that I need to address so that my health not impacted in the future? Pay attention to that because that piece is extremely, extremely important. And now on the topic of resiliency, how important it is when we're going through changes and challenges and making good choices is that we pay attention to our resiliency level. And the thing about having a resilient mindset doesn't mean that these changes and challenges are not going to come at you and you're not going to fall back sometimes and go, whoa, what happened? But it really means that you understand that when we're talking about resiliency, it's not even about bouncing back from something. I really believe on a personal level that it's about bouncing forward. Because oftentimes when we talk about bouncing back, what we're really saying is take me back to where I was. Take me back to that place of comfort. I just want to spring back to where I was. And that's not there anymore. So we really have to spring forward. We have to think about forward movement. And yes, there'll be challenges as we move forward. But the reality is with resiliency, we have to stay present to what's going on and be aware of our 3 capacities. And that's our social capacity, our intellectual capacity, and our psychological capacity. So let's start with the social capacity. In order for us to maintain a resilient mindset or even develop a resilient mindset, and everybody has a capacity to become resilient because when we go through stuff, you're going to become resilient depending on how you're dealing with it. So our social capacity is really about who's in your circle, who's around you, who are you paying attention to, who's there to cheer you on, who's there to elevate you, who's there to lift you up. We all need our circle around us. We need the people who are going to not only just be there for us, but also we need truth tellers because sometimes it's so easy to surround ourselves with people that will go down that, that road with us that's not so good. The people that will get on that fuss bus with you and go, come on, let's go because this is how I'm feeling. No, that's not the kind of people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that are going to get you to rise to a new level. People who are going to let you see there's opportunities. They're going to say, look this direction. Here's where the opportunities are. So you really want to make sure you have a good circle around you of people who are going to elevate you for good if you want to maintain a resilient mindset. And that's how we get a resilient mindset. And then second, the intellectual capacity. And I know this well, having worked in the nonprofit world for so long, that we can get so caught up in it because we love what we do and we're passionate about what we do. That's why we show up every day, because we see that there's needs and we want to be there and we want to support and we want to help. But here's the thing. Sometimes we have to give our mind a rest and we have to put something else in there. The brain needs to be stimulated by other things. And so, for example, I started doing like some learning piano. I started learning another language because I wanted to have my mind stimulated in a different way. So if you want to maintain some resiliency, it's good to challenge your brain and your mind in a different way than what you normally do on a regular basis. And then the psychological capacity is the one that I care about the most on a personal level, because that talks about who are you becoming? Because in the midst of changes, in the midst of challenges, something's always happening to us. it can't not help but happen to us. If it's not happening to you, you might be dead, because something has to be happening and shifting in you emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. That's why I talked about the man in the mirror, the person in the mirror, because something shifts, something happens. And so we have to ask ourselves, in the midst of any kind of changes and challenges, especially now that you've had this merger, is to ask yourself, who have I become? And it doesn't mean that's a negative thing. Maybe you've become a different person in some respects because you've grown and you've cashed in opportunities and you feel like you're rising to new levels. But it's important to understand who it is that you're becoming in the midst of changes, challenges, and the choices that you have to make. Pay attention to your resiliency level and understand that it's never about bouncing back, but it's about bouncing forward and hopefully seeing some incredibly new opportunities. This is another critical piece around staying on the change train, building resiliency, and making good choices. And this is about the choice of self-honoring. I mean, we always hear about self-care, 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 and that's good, and that's what this is about. But for me, I had to change the name to self-honoring. And when I started saying I'm going to do some self-honoring, it inspired me and encouraged me to actually do something, because I said, yes, I deserve to honor myself. And I say to you, yes, you deserve to honor yourself. So every day I go, it's about self-honoring. I'm going out to honor myself. And I encourage you every day to honor yourself. And the biggest way that we can honor ourselves is to just take a moment of gratitude. Just a moment of gratitude. Every single day, a moment of gratitude. The second way to honor ourselves is about how we build relationships. So for me, many, many years ago, I heard a story about Vince Lombardi. And for those that don't know Vince Lombardi, if you watch football, there's the Vince Lombardi, the Lombardi Trophy, I believe it is. Anyways, he was an NFL coach and had a very good reputation. And people loved Vince Lombardi, who's no longer here with us. And Vince Lombardi brought his teams to great success. And at one point, Vince Lombardi was addressing a group of people who had come to hear him speak. And it was an early morning, and he was so impressed with so many people that showed up to hear him talk to them about the secret to success. And I remember him hearing that he said, like, he was humbled that so many people would come out so early in the morning to hear him speak about the secret to success, but that he only could take, a couple seconds to explain that to them, and then they'd be on their way. Because he said, the secret to my success, it's not a long story, both on and off the football field. It was very simple. The secret to my success was heart power. And then he said it again. The secret to my success has always been heart power. And then he said, the secret to heart power is that you have to build relationships that are based on integrity, honesty, and truth. That's the secret. He says, I've always built heart-powered relationships. And those heart-powered relationships were based on honesty, integrity, and truth. And when I built those kind of relationships, people skyrocketed. There was nothing else for me to do, is to make sure that I built these relationships. And he called them heart-powered relationships, that's how those relationships were built. It was all heart-powered. And when we're going through so many changes and challenges, one of the greatest gifts we can give to ourselves and to other people is to make sure we're building heart-powered relationships. Because when you have heart-powered relationships, it fuels a great energy inside of you. I'm sure if you're around certain people and you built these great relationships where there's honesty, integrity, and trust, you could fly. Because if you surround yourself with those kind of people and you become one of those people where you just engage in heart-powered relationships, that's $1 million, honestly, if you can build those relationships. One of the things that I have been known for through my family and my friends is that I'm like this person that goes around collecting hearts, because I love seeing people do well. I love seeing people being built up. I love seeing people build up these incredibly rich relationships. Why? Because I see what happens when you do that. And honestly, when you build heart-powered relationships, people will do anything for you. So focus on that, because that is indeed a form of self-honoring. And now I want to talk about the Cracker Jack moments. I can't see faces, so I don't know the ages of anybody on this in this presentation today. But I can tell you this: I'm from the era for when we used to be able to buy these boxes of Cracker Jacks. And in these boxes of Cracker Jacks, there was always this tiny little prize inside. Now, I understand they still make Cracker Jacks this day and age, but the prizes aren't anything like what we had then. But they were just these little teeny prizes. And so, coming from a large family, one of the things that my father used to always say is that if we all behaved on a Friday night, we would all get a box of Cracker Jacks. And at the time, and now I'll really age myself, the Cracker Jacks probably cost 10 cents, 25 cents. I don't know what it was, something like that. But it was a big deal then. And so I was always on my best behavior, especially Thursday night, because Friday was coming. And I remember always negotiating with my siblings because I didn't care much about the popcorn. I just wanted the prizes inside. And they cared about the popcorn, so they were negotiating with me, like, who are you going to give this popcorn to? Because I really want the prizes. So what happened was I'd always collect these prizes, and they were just these little teeny things. But the joy that brought me with these little things that I would collect, these little teeny things, and every time I saw them, and every time it was Friday for the popcorn, joy just infused in me. And I call those the Cracker Jack moments. And now what happens every day in my daily life and in my life when I worked in the nonprofit world is I tried really hard on those days when it became challenging to find and look for the Cracker Jack moments. You know, those moments where it was good, where it felt good, maybe a conversation you had with somebody, maybe some news that you got about work, something good happened. When you're starting to feel like that backpack is heavy, that's when you want to go back and visit those Cracker Jack moments, because they will infuse an air of life into you, and they'll infuse some joy in you because you're remembering something positive, something good that happened. So we got to hold on to the Cracker Jack moments. We have to cash in on the Cracker Jack moments. And I challenge you, when you go back, when you're doing your work, wherever it is that you're doing it, throughout your day, look for Cracker Jack moments and write them down, like, oh, that's a good Cracker Jack moment. Ah, that's a wonderful Cracker Jack moment. And on those days when you're not feeling it, you can go back and look at that. And trust me, you'll start to feel something good feeling up inside of you. So pay attention to the Cracker Jack moments. The next piece in terms of self-honoring is to just be able to sit in moments of stillness. So I have to share with you that was probably the hardest one for me, because I have a lot of energy and I love to be active. I love to be going. I love to be doing. And when they say, can you just sit in stillness for a while? When I first started doing that many years ago, I had to actually set an alarm clock so that on my phone, so that I would sit for even just 5 minutes in stillness with no music, no talking, no one around me, just me and myself and I. And it was hard at first, but now I'm able to do it. And I can tell you the incredible benefits of just being able to be in that place of stillness and what it does to all the organs in your body, what it does even just to relax your mind, how it gets you focused on just the present moment. And there's been research done in terms of what it does to your body, your physical well-being overall. So there is a place for stillness in our self-honoring. And then the invisible water line. I had the privilege and pleasure of working with a group of volunteers who went to New Orleans to help rebuild. And one of the pieces that stood out for me when they took us out on our buses to see the areas, and this is back in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit in New Orleans, took us out to these areas to see where we would be working. And I remember traveling through one area on the buses. And one of the things that stood out for me was when they were showing us certain communities, how high up the water was on some of these houses. And in my head, I was thinking, my God, did they get out alive? Because the water line was like almost to the top of these houses. And I was like, my goodness. And seeing that really impacted me in a very, very powerful way. And I remember throughout the whole time we were there, the 2 weeks, I kept saying to the women, like, oh my God, look how high those water lines were. And when I got home, I was still saying the same thing to my family, like, my God, the water line on those houses were so high. And what it made me think of when I was doing my presentations is that when we're going through changes and challenges and disruptions, it impacts us. And so we have to pay attention to how high up the water is coming on us emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. How high up is the water line? Is it down by your feet? Are you just feeling a little wobbly, that you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable? Is it coming up to your knees? Are you having aches and pains there? Is it coming up a little bit higher in your chest area? Are you feeling some stress here? Is it up here? Or are you in over your head? Pay attention to your water line and pay attention to the water line of every single person around you, because everybody is going through something, because this is just the reality of life. This is the reality of changes and challenges. And I challenge you to pay attention to where that water line is on you. And the last piece around self-honoring, I think it's no secret that there's been so much conversation over the last 4 or 5 years about mental health. And we really have to start paying attention to that for ourselves and for others, because our mental health is critical. And I'm not going to read everything that's on this slide because I think that you can read, but I will tell you that when we're talking about mental health, I want you to always think about what you do if you do a workout during the day, that you go and work out and why you go to work out, because there's certain things that you feel you need to work out. And it's the same thing with our mental health. Sometimes we just need to, just like we need a physical workout, we sometimes need a mental workout too. So we got to do some good things for ourselves. But one of the big pieces on this slide that stands out for me is that second bullet where it says mental health problems don't define who you are. There's something you experience. You walk in the rain and you feel the rain, but more importantly, you are not the rain. And understand that mental health can impact the aspect of everybody's life, and mental health is on such a long spectrum that everybody has something that they're experiencing or working with or dealing with. So we just have to be kind to each other. We have to be loving to each other. We have to be caring towards each other and support each other along the way, because it can be very challenging. The next piece in terms of staying aboard the change train, I've titled it What's Under Your Umbrella. Because one of the things that I'm sure if I was able to see everybody and say how many people here are feeling like they have some kind of work-life balance, that some of you would go, oh my gosh, work-life balance. And I want to share with you that for me, it's not about having this work-life balance, because let's face it, life is a continuous dynamic process of uphills and downhills and trials and triumphs. And it's very hard, even if you think you found the balance, to maintain that balance, because life will deal you some sucker punches. And then you're like, whoa, I thought I had balance and now I don't have balance. Because that's just the reality of life. It's very, very hard. We think about work-life balance. We think about an equilibrium that we can just have. If everything over here goes well at work and everything here in my home life, everything is going to be good. But that's not reality, because anything can happen at home to upset that equilibrium. Anything can happen at work to upset that equilibrium. So I really believe that what we're really looking for is every single person in this room today wants to live. They want to love. They want to laugh, and they want to leave a legacy. So how do we do that? We want to live. We want to, enjoy life. We want to love. We want to be in incredible relationships. We want to live. We want to love. We want to laugh. Who doesn't want to laugh? And we want to leave a legacy. We want something to leave behind that people say, oh, I know that they were here. So what I have decided after I realized that it's a long story, which I couldn't share today, given the time, but what I have realized is that I don't subscribe to this work-life balance thing anymore. But what I subscribe to is the glass balls. And so here's what I did many years ago when I realized that this work-life balance thing wasn't working for me, because every time I felt balanced, life would throw a sucker ball at me and I'd be off my kilter again. I went out and bought 4 glass balls. And the first glass ball says Rosita, and in brackets it says health. The second glass ball says Norm, that's my husband. Third glass ball says Chris, that's my youngest. And the fourth glass ball says Josh, that's my oldest. And I keep those glass balls on my desk. If I could turn my computer, I'd show you, but they're on my desk. And I keep them on my desk because it reminds me what's truly important in my life. And I would encourage you to get your glass balls and figure out what's really important to you. And why do I have glass balls? Because we're always juggling, right? We're juggling balls. We're juggling balls. This is life. This is life. But you see, the glass balls can't be a part of my juggling act, because you know what happens if you drop a glass ball. The other balls you can juggle and they may bounce back up again. You know, I'm juggling this and I didn't do this today. I let that one go. Or I should have done this and I let that one go. But the glass balls, see, my health, my husband, my two boys, never, ever, ever will they be a part of the juggling act. If something has to go, it's going to be something totally different. It might even be work. I don't know what it's going to be, but it is not going to be my glass balls. So I encourage you to figure out what your glass balls are. Don't make it 10 things, because then it's going to be really hard. Just pick out 3, 4 maximum things where you go, these are the things that really matter. Never mind the work-life balance. Here, if I can get these things right, this is going to make my life so different, so much better. And that's what I had to do. I was like, I'm going to get these things right because this is what I need in my life right now and forever. And what it did for me, it ended up being my refueling system. Because when I have the time for my health, when I have the time for my husband, when I have the time for my Josh, when I have the time for my Chris, I'm just fueled with energy, with love, with life, with joy. And don't we all want that? So you have to figure out, what are your glass balls? So on that, here's what I want you to do. In the meantime, as you're figuring out, am I on that change train? Am I getting on that change train? Do I have my glass balls? Do I have my self-honoring piece in place? Have I been looking in the mirror and understanding who I am at the core? Whatever that is for you, here's the thing that we all have to bring to the table every single day. And it's just to sprinkle some ordinary magic wherever we go, regardless of what's going on. And that ordinary magic just means we sprinkle empathy, we sprinkle compassion, we sprinkle kindness, and we sprinkle gratitude. If we can do that, it's going to make a big difference in our lives, and it's going to make a big difference in the lives of everyone who's come into contact with us. So let me just do a really quick recap, very quick, in terms of the 6 things that I emphasized to you today. Number 1, you're going to have continuous changes and challenges, and there's going to be messy, and the relationships sometimes are going to be rough, but we have to hold on. That there will always be things that will work against the momentum of changes and challenges, and we have to work through those things as well. That we have to be on a constant self-awareness journey. And I talked to you about the person in the mirror. Pay attention to that invisible backpack that you're carrying, because it's going to weigh you down, and it's also going to weigh down other people who come into contact with you. Pay attention to how important it is to maintain a resilient mindset if you want to stay aboard that change train. Adopt a system for honoring yourself. Self-honoring is so critical. And figure out what your glass balls are and keep them somewhere safe, and understand that those glass balls cannot be a part of the juggling act. So my question to you in terms of a closing reflection is this: how have you been showing up for work each day? Are you on the fuss bus or the change train? And how's it working for you? And finally, the future will always be filled with unpredictability. And since we cannot rewind the past, the only way forward is to press play. And now, if time permits, I don't know if it was, I was moving kind of fast, I will answer any questions or any comments that people may have. But I also want to say that I went through that pretty quickly. If you have any questions or comments or want a copy of my slides, let me know. But it was my joy and pleasure to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosita. Inspiring as usual. And I can't remember the heart analogy, the football player. What was it? Heart?
Power.
Heart power? Oh, did we lose you?
There we go.
There we go. Yes, heart power and some of the ways of living and ways of the values that you have listed, the three that he listed, and those are very much Indigenous ways of living and teaching and being in the world. So some really great links there. I'll tell you, we do have some time for questions. I'll look at the chat in a second, but I will tell you that the first time I saw your presentation about the glass balls, I went out and I thought, this is what I need. It was the right time, the right moment for me to do that. And so mine are partner and my two kids and my dog. And,
oh, that's wonderful.
You know, one child doesn't live with me, the other child does. He's now, I explained it to him, but he's now used it as a way for him to ask me to pay attention to him. So I will sometimes come home and if he's had a bad day, he'll move his ball just a little bit somewhere. And I know that, and that's his way of saying, Dad, I need to talk. And so it's you know, spread across our family. And it's really kind of just, you know, another little strategy, another really eye-opening and beautiful strategy that we use now.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Marcus. That's beautiful.
Are there any questions? Please put them in the chat, or if your hand up, you can unmute and ask yourself, or ask Rosita yourself. Rosita, in the chat, there's very inspiring, Rosita. Thank you. Thank you. Very thought-provoking. Don't see anybody's hand up.
Feel free to also unmute yourself and ask a question with audio since we're using Zoom.
Sorry. That was a wonderful presentation, Rosita. Thank you. Teresa, I see you're trying to connect to audio, but that might be what you were trying to put in the chat to say. Okay, folks. Well, one more check. Thank you once again, Rosita.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
My pleasure.
As Rosita said, if anybody would like a presentation, we can certainly facilitate that through Rosita. And again, thank you. I think we're going on a break now. So we'll start from 12:30 to 1. So we will be back at 1 o'clock. The concurrent sessions are all on our Feedloop platform. So there's no Zoom link. You have to log into your Feedloop account and find the session that you're attending. Is there anything else, Andrew, that I have missed in terms of housekeeping?
No, I just need someone else to take a picture in the photo booth, so it's not just me.
Right.
And enjoy the break. Come back to the virtual event portal and choose your session for 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Thank you, everyone. We'll
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zita.